Hello, viewers. This is your host, Dhiren Mehta from the Global Perspectives. We are a new age crowdsourced reporting medium that brings alternate perspective from the ground level that often mainstream media doesn't find convenient to present. Today, we are going to talk about the current situation on Indo-China border and what's happening since the skirmishes that happened in Galwan roughly about 4 months back. And to talk about that, today we have with us Akshay ji, who is a defense analyst. We have Lieutenant Commander uh, Ja, who is a veteran from the Air Force, currently no more in the government though. Uh, and we have Francois Gauchier, who is a historian and has been covering. He's also a journalist and has been covering India, China, and the subcontinent for last 35 years. Welcome to the panel. So, for the benefit of our viewers, Akshay ji, can you tell us what has been happening in last about 4 months since the Galwan skirmishes that happened at the border?
Namaskar, Jai Mata Di.
Namaste.
As we know, in the middle of June, the Galwan clashes happened, and after that, there were a series of build-ups from both sides. What the Indian side has done is on the 9th, on the night of 29th, 30th of August, they carried out a very well-planned and deliberate operation by taking over several heights on what is called the Kailash range. So if I just take you through the topography a little bit, you've got the Pangangso Lake. Just below the Pangangso Lake, a little south and a little to the west of the Pangangso Lake, just a few kilometers, is a lake called the Spanger Lake. Now, this broad area is called the Chushul area. You can call it subsector Chushul as well. And on the south bank of the Spanger Lake, there is a range. There is a range of mountains called the Kailash Range. And on the western bank of the Spanger Lake, there is an area called the Spanger Gap, which is roughly a 2-kilometer broad plain in the mountains through which armor can come in. So that area can actually threaten entire Chushul, and it can also threaten the subsector north sectors north of Chushul. So what the Indian Army did on the 9th or 29th, 30th August is that they took the heights. So they went and sat on the heights of the entire Kailash range. So there are several hilltops or mountain tops rather. They go by the name, one is called Black Top, there is Rizangla, there is Rechinla, and several others. So what we have is we're sitting on the heights of the mountains south of the Spanger Lake. We are also sitting on both the left shoulder and the right shoulder, the mountains which are astriding the Spanger Gap. So the Spanger Gap is like this. There's a mountain here, there is a mountain here, we're sitting here, and we're sitting here as well. So this position is actually excellent. What this position does is this threatens, in fact, the first thing it does is it completely stops China from coming into Chushul. And if they come into Chushul, they can go up, they can go north, they can go south, and they can threaten that entire DSDBO road. So all of that is now out of the picture. That cannot be done. But what it also does is there is a garrison of China called the Moldo garrison, which is very close to the area. That garrison is now completely untenable because we are on the heights, and from those heights we can see that a garrison very clearly, and we can also fire on that garrison through flat trajectory weapons and through rockets very, very clearly. So basically, if anything happens, that garrison can be taken out in minutes. Not only that, we have a very, very clear view right across the entire Pangongso Lake. So not only is the Spanger completely covered, the entire Pangongso is completely covered. So the Chinese, as you know, are on the north bank of the Pangongso between finger 4 and finger 8. They have taken they are on the bank there. So that entire area is now within our observation. It was in our observation earlier also, but now it's in a much better area, observation. And we can bring to bear a significant amount of fire there. So this is a very, very significant thing. The way it has been reported in the media and the way the government reported it is that they said that the Chinese were planning to come and take some of these heights. So we preempted them and we took these heights just a few minutes before the Chinese did. Now, knowing how these operations are done, clearly this was a well-planned operation. This did not happen on the spur. So this is one thing that has been done. This is a very strong position. So India is in an extremely strong position here. The Chinese are quite flustered. During this operation, the Chinese did try to take some of these heights, and they were quite shocked that the Indians were on the heights before. In fact, we also have a tank regiment, an armored regiment in the just south of the gap. So we've got armor there as well, and we are very well positioned. What has also happened is that on the heights above Finger 4, we are also at the highest height above Finger 4. So the Chinese are sitting on the heights above Finger 4, but we are sitting on higher heights than that. Dhirenji, I can't hear you.
Sorry. So Finger 4 has those opportunity to be at a much higher elevation within that.
No, so on Finger 4, the spur of the mountain on Finger 4, the Chinese are sitting there, but there is a higher spur behind that where we are sitting now.
Okay.
So as far as the Pinggongsho area is concerned, we are in fairly good shape. In fact, in excellent shape. Nothing to worry about here. Galwan, anyway, is all cleared out and we've got positions there. That's fine. The area which is a little bit, I wouldn't say concerned, but the area where the Chinese do have a presence is in the subsector north, which is the Depsang area. And just to remind the viewers on how the topography is, if you draw a line northwest to southeast, so a slanting line like this, right here is where you have the Karakoram Pass. Just 20 kilometers below, you have the Depsang area, Daulat Beg, Oldie, and so on and so forth. Halfway down there, you've got the Galwan area. Right at the end of it, you've got Demchok. And say about 2/3 of the way down from Daulat Beg, Oldie, you have the Chushul area.
Okay, great.
So we are okay we're okay at Chushul. We're in very good position in Chushul, an excellent position. But as far as Depsang is concerned, the Chinese are still blocking us at an area called the Y Junction. So from the Y Junction, our patrols used to go through various patrol points and do a broad circular patrol. That was patrolling point PP 10, 11, 12, 13. That still is being blocked by the Chinese, but that is okay. We've also got a fair amount of positioning there. In terms of overall forces, we now have at least a minimum of 2 divisions there. So the main division there is the 3 Mountain Division, which was always in that area. But another division is definitely there. I think it is the 39 Div. And we have certainly inducted at least another independent armored brigade. So there is already an existing independent armored brigade, but we've inducted at least another independent armored brigade. So in terms of troops, our troops, we've got, say, between 40,000 troops there in that area, properly acclimatized, ready, well positioned. The Chinese have 2 divisions that we are aware of, the 6th and the 4th. So roughly about 30,000 troops. That is what the correlation is right now.
Thanks. Thanks for that summary. So, Francois ji, from your perspective, since you are very well connected within media and to some extent within the bureaucracy as well, what are you hearing from the media and government sources? And I'm sure they don't say everything. So while we have a ground level information from Akshay ji, and we'll hear from Mr. Jai as well, what are you hearing?
So what Akshay said was, very, very, very practical, and very well, it was a very well assessment of the situation on the ground, some of which I did not know. I'm in France at the moment for a book release. So what I'm more preoccupied about, talking about the media, is that in the French media, there's no mention of, because India needs political, even if there is a war, there will be pressure on India and China to stop the war. So India needs support, at least moral support from European nations, from democratic nations, because India is a democracy after all, and China is not a democracy at all. But the world, I mean, my country, France, people are so preoccupied with the COVID-19. At the moment, there is a curfew because there's a spike in the COVID cases in France, and people, French people are very, they like to drink and they like to be on cafes, so there is not much social distancing. But I do not see any mention about this. And I tweeted myself in France that, the Chinese have massed 40,000 soldiers on the Indian border, and they're claiming, except for the US, I don't see in the media, in the Western media, any support, not even support, but any knowledge, about what's happening. I mean, if there is a war between India and China, which seems likely to me because the Chinese consider the Indians inferior and they think they could win that war, the whole world is going to come to a surprise, except the US again. I mean, I'm not a great fan of Mr. Trump, but it's only, Mr. Trump and his party who have taken notice of what's happening. India needs support. I mean, of course, the Indian soldiers are very, very capable. I spent myself quite a lot of time with the Indian Army in Kashmir, and I saw young officers, educated young officers, dedicated people, wonderful soldiers. And I know that India will maybe give a lesson to China, but nevertheless, India needs financial support also. Not only the media support, but financial support to buy winter clothing, to buy more weapons that function, in winter. Now the winter is coming. It's a matter of worry. I mean, at least for me, who's not knowledgeable in military matters, it's a matter of worry. But also, from a media point of view, as a journalist, I am surprised that the world is so ignorant about what's happening. And the two largest nations in the world, looking eye into eye, and knowing the Chinese and their arrogance.
Unfortunately,
the war is very likely. Maybe not now that winter is coming.
So, and that is the reason why we bring such programs that we get alternate perspective and share that media doesn't want to cover.
Yes. Dhiren, I just want to make one very quick point. It is true that apart from the US, no Western government has made too much of a statement, but Secretary Pompeo in fact said there are 3,000 troops there.
What about the British government?
No, I don't think they've made any statement. And this then goes down to the fact that while we are handling the situation okay, from a military perspective, as usual, our information warfare is below par. It is always the case. Our information warfare is always below par. Anyhow, I just want to make one very quick point that we don't need any financial support. That is absolute. And I've said this before on our previous programs. In case of a war, China will lose. They will not get a bloody nose. They will lose badly. And the reason they will lose badly is because of geography. As we made out before, they cannot bring more than 200 aircraft to bear in that region. Our aircraft will take off from our air bases on the plains in significant numbers, and we will achieve air dominance. We have an Air Force perspective here. Actually, not Lieutenant Commander, but Flight Lieutenant. But we have an Air Force perspective, I'm sure he'll give us, but we will absolutely get air dominance. There is no question. In terms of artillery, in terms of firepower, we more than match them. They will lose. They have already started having casualties.
Actually, aren't the Chinese more ruthless and more cunning than the Indians in terms
No, they are more ruthless from a political perspective, but they are completely incapable as a military, and the geography is against them.
I see Mr. Jaishankar, the External Affairs Minister, saying that we need to resolve the conflict. We need to talk.
That's where the problem lies.
May I
lies with people like Jaishankar and also do not understand.
But the military is under control of the civilians. The military in India.
So that's where the problem lies. I agree. See, I'm just telling you military facts. The Chinese know very well that they will lose a war against India because geography is against them, Francois. 90% of these things are based on geography. Yeah,
let's hear from the veteran, our Mr. Jha.
Right, namaskar to everyone. Happy Durga Puja. Today being Ashtami. Best wishes to all of you. On the current crisis, I would rather first step back and try to summarize it from a different perspective. We, as people who are watching this, should understand that this thing started with China trying to push the LAC further westwards. Now, LAC, or line of actual control, in most parts is not a unified line. We have a different perception, which is slightly east of what China always claims. And the Chinese perception keeps shifting westward. Over a period of time, it keeps moving west, 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 west. And China made a move, very significant move this year. Unlike other years where it would do exercise and go back, this year they came up and sat down at Finger 4 and occupied about an 8-kilometer stretch from Finger 4 to Finger 8. And we should not forget that in any analysis that we do, because this is where China changed status quo. How did we respond thereafter? Our response, in my opinion, thereafter has been very, very circumspect. We have been very careful not to make it appear that we are, going to be aggressive. We are definitely trying to just match what China is doing. At one place where a local action happened without any authority or top, we did get better of them. Of course, we lost 20 Braves, and but that really showed the world one particularly important message, that the Chinese really were unable to counter our Indian troops. Given the territory, given the geography, given the training that our troops have for high altitude mountain warfare, we really outperformed them. But that was the only place an action happened. Rest of the places, our troops have been asked to stand down and not be aggressive. We may have taken positions on August 31st, which have tactical benefits. But remember that even those positions are inside the territory. Even if you take the Chinese LAC, which is far west of our own LAC, into consideration, the government has not agreed to say that we have crossed the Chinese version of LAC. Now that is very important, because that message from the government, that the government has been trying to resolve the issue peacefully and not trying to escalate. And this message has been constant right from the first day that the crisis started till today. The government has been very clear that they don't want to give a message where they sound aggressive. They don't want the army. They are not letting the army, in my opinion, not letting the army to do anything aggressive, because army could have done certain reverses elsewhere too, to make a better position. As far as Akshay sir's assessment on whether we stand a better chance in versus in a conflict with China, definitely if it's a conflict initiated with China, where China is aggressive, we definitely will beat them hollow. There is no question of them, beating us on our territory. But going inside China, if we are aggressive, till the mountains, we are definitely in a advantageous position. But once you hit plains of Tibet, our advantages will start eroding, in my opinion, because the distance from our air bases start increasing, our supply lines start increasing. So I'd say 150, 200 kilometers is where the boundary of our advantage ends from present LAC. Going into 150, 200 kilometer range, our Air Force will start finding it very difficult to give the Army proper air cover. And Army, of course, will have a very long logistics line. On the border itself, in the present border itself, there's no way China is going to overcome us militarily. We're very sure about the fact that we've been there in those territories, in those mountains, training exactly for this situation for now since 1962. And the Chinese have actually, in my opinion, walked into a trap. This was a civilizational opportunity for us to reset some clocks, send messages across to China that we can take back some from you. We have let it go as far as I'm concerned, and we have given the opportunity to China to take back some more territory from us. This is purely from a military and individual perspective of understanding what the present situation is. On the perspective of how the global world media and the world is actually viewing this, of course, most of the world is not even worried about this issue. Primarily because it is us who is trying to downplay the event. It is our government, our military, which keeps giving the pacifying statement And the democracies world over pick up these messages. They know that the government is saying that they don't want to escalate. There's no point of getting worried about it. Because if the Indian government doesn't want to escalate, and we are just mirroring the deployment, 40,000 versus 30,000 doesn't really give us an advantage where we can attack and take back, everything that we want. So Chinese also know that we are not going to do an attacking war. And because our Chinese are only 40,000, 30,000 troops, we also know that they are not going to be aggressive. There is not going to be an aggressive war at this point of time unless they build up far more number of troops. What we may have is a local escalation, probably something like Galwan, which went out of hand, or where troops come too close to each other and things go out of hand. That situation may develop, which could lead to a local, fracas. But I do not see this happening into a war because no side has built up for a war.
Yeah, I just want to make. Can I just make one thing, right? So I absolutely agree with that assessment that we will win the war, and I think that from our current positions, we can launch an offensive at least 150, 200 kilometers. And after that, it will become a little difficult because of supply lines. And this is what people don't realize. Right now, Chinese supply lines are 3,000 kilometers, right? So there's, and our supply lines are much shorter. So we are in a very good position. The problem is, I just want to explain the Chinese military thinking. It is ingrained in China to win without fighting. This gentleman called Su Zhu always keeps talking about winning without fighting. So they have this concept of warfare called the war zone strategy. Now, strategy of war zone is very simple. They've identified 5 enemies. So one is India, there's Vietnam, there's Taiwan, there's Philippines. What they want to do is, and this is published, what they want to do is, they want to take each of them one at a time, in one war zone. So focus all your energy on one, destroy them, then go to the other one, destroy them one by one. Now, Francois mentioned this last time. Jahaz also mentioned this. This was an opportunity of a century. Because it's the first time the whole world is against you, against China. If you see, there have been several exercises in the South China Sea. There was a time when 3 US carrier battle groups were there. And they've carried out several other exercises. The US is very keen to do something.
Yeah.
But for whatever, and the Chinese absolutely know that they will lose a war with India, so they don't want to fight. What they want to do is they want to show the world that we can cow India down. And once they cow India down, then they will cow Philippines, Vietnam, everybody else down. We have not even told the world that we gave them a very bloody nose at Galwan.
So that's I think our.
Sorry?
I think that's been our weakness since, if you look at even what happened in Kargil, I'm not going far back, but what even happened in Kargil, I think it's been, our diplomacy has been on that always defensive rather than.
It a wrong assessment somewhere. If we had told the world that, listen, we have beaten you very badly in Galwan, 80 of your people died, you're not able to do something, they'd be looking like fools.
Yeah.
But for whatever reason, we seem to be wanting to play the things down. I know for a fact that after Galwan happened, the orders from the formation commanders were keep the boys calm, keep the boys calm, keep the boys calm. So this carries on. So I completely agree with the assessment given earlier. China's aim is to win without fighting because they know that they will lose while fighting. They are trying to win the battle in the mind. And if we have to win it, if we have to defeat China, we have to be very clear in our mind that that is the battle being fought. And one last point I want to make very quickly is, just remember this thing. If we don't fight, we will have to fight them in 3 or 4 years. A fight with China is inevitable because what China will do is, right now we have an advantage over them because they have hardly 4 airfields in Tibet and they can place very few aircraft. Once they build lots and lots and lots more airfields, even if each of those airfields can only take off a couple of aircraft, they've got such a lot of
wider
ability to put all their resources into the military because they are not a democracy, that in 5 years, 10 years, they will have the sheer numbers there. So our opportunity is now.
So
every year that passes, the thing moves against us.
Got it. Francois, you want to say something?
Yeah. So I agree with Akshay. I've been thinking for quite a few years that a war with China is inevitable, that it will happen. So I'm not sure also that the Chinese think that they will lose that war. I think the Chinese are very arrogant people. I mean, intelligent, ruthless, and I don't think that they have an idea that they would lose that war. I think that the Chinese are very confident, and they consider Indian inferior. And though they can see that Indians are better prepared and are giving a better fight, they still think that they will win that war and crush India like they did in '62. The other thing is that there's a momentum for China now. At the beginning of the COVID, I'm talking, worldwide as a journalist. At the beginning of COVID, there was a certain resentment against China, led by the US. But, even in France and other countries, there was a resentment. But it's been forgotten at the moment. And the Chinese have, they're striking everywhere. They move forward. Their economy, that's so important. Their economy has started again, and they're again producing for the whole world. And again, the whole world depending on them, for so many things, because the world is tied up with this COVID. I mean, the whole of Europe is tied up with the COVID. So they're not thinking about the Chinese virus, So China is, in a momentum now. And I don't see India having that momentum. I don't see India, the Prime Minister of India, the business in India, saying, okay, now we need to produce, we need to offer to the West an alternative to China to invest. I don't see that. I see a prudent India, and again, very prudent as far as the Chinese are, not wanting to antagonize the Chinese, not, promoting the Dalai Lama, avoiding talking about the Dalai Lama, avoiding talking about Tibet, an external who says, no, we need to negotiate, and again, that Hindi Chini bye bye, mentality is still there in India. I mean, the Kshatriya spirit of the army is stifled still, I feel.
Yeah, but Francois, if I see this thing, right, one is obviously how do you kind of articulate, how do you present, and the actions you take. I think there is a lot of proactive action being taken to defend.
It's an economic war, Dhiren. It's an economic war also. It's more than anything about economy. About the Chinese still dominating the world economy, and India having right now an opportunity to replace China, or at least to equate China. But India is not doing it. It is not happening. Not happening, in my opinion.
If you look at FDI and all that, I think there is a huge growth in FDI. But economy, we cannot act as swiftly as China can. Just because
we are facing the same hurdle as China. China faced it, overcome it, and now started grinding up its economy full steam. India is not doing. Even if there is a military war, it is the economic war between India and China that is vital. India needs to be an economic superpower.
Yeah.
If it wants its knowledge, its spirituality, its dharma to help the world, which is struggling so much at the moment. And China is the enemy. China is the Asura. So China needs to be fought, in the spirit of the Bhagavad Gita, without fear, on all fronts. Not only military, but also economic.
Absolutely. I totally agree with this without fear. And I don't understand, and we've discussed this several times, and for some reason there is a bit of reticence, there is a bit of risk averseness in the military leadership also. There is some risk averseness in the military leadership also, and that does not correlate with ground realities. We have looked at it several different ways, but I'll let my co-panelists comment a little bit on that, a few minutes too.
Actually, the way I see things is that while the nation, the youth of the nation may have changed, and the ideas in the youth is much more belligerent about India, the leadership across, whether it is military or it is the political leadership, it still comes from a generation which is more circumspect whether we can do something or achieve something or not. And in so doing, this leadership is being very defensive. It is not taking the opportunity head on. As Francois ji mentioned, we could have done much more on the economic front. But knowing how things work, you have made announcements this June. So by the time they take effect, it will be 2022, December sometime. You'll start seeing some wheels starting to move. It will be a very slow process on the economic front too.
Yeah.
On the military front, more often than not, it is the directives of the government can be very easily gauged by how much or how many of our generals are as of now actually talking about an aggressive posture. Most of them are actually talking about a very defensive posture, very, very defensively minded, and talking about, just retaining what we are currently in hold of. Even the 8 kilometer stretch in Pangong area, I haven't heard a general say that we'll take it back. So that kind of shows where we are all positioned. And it's a mindset battle that we need to fight, because in a local frontal war between China and India, that 8 square kilometer will become a Waterloo situation, or what was that? The Crimean battle for the Chinese troops. While the Chinese may consider themselves superior to us, on ground they'll actually find it very difficult, because sitting on the mountains and fighting is very different. And unlike 62, we are not going to back down this time, because 62 kind of has left a permanent scar. There is not going to be a repeat of 62 at whatever cost. The Indian government and the Indian army cannot allow that to happen anymore.
Yeah,
No,
thanks.
It's not possible. See, what happened in 62 was the Air Force did not play a part.
Yeah.
Right now, the Chief of Air Staff, as we've been told, has given options to the government when asked, saying that we can actually achieve air dominance. Air dominance means that in the theater, we will not allow Chinese aircraft to move. That is a very big thing. You will own the night and the day skies over the area. That's a huge thing. Plus we have standoff weapons, and plus we have concentrated forces there. So I like using a word called military logic, right? So military is also science. So if you look at military logic, by sheer military logic plus geography, we are in a good position.
Correct.
Why the assessment of the higher ups is a little risk averse, I don't know. It is probably mindset.
I think
there are lots of other things, but
I think also it's a mindset of I think it's our mindset to not get into unnecessary conflict and focus on maybe, just status quo, I believe. And that's what it is.
Conflict aayega, Dhiren ji, Z ne nahi chhodna aapko. Z is not going to leave you.
Yeah.
Okay. He has had a setback. Let's be very clear. He's had a setback, even though we downplayed it. If you give him the chance, in 5 years, he will ensure that he teaches you a very strong lesson. By being nice to him, that lesson is not going to go away.
Got it. Francis, you want to say something? Let's talk about, if you want to complete, and then we move to the next question.
Just in few words, if I can sum up my thoughts, I would say that the military, the soldier, that was the officers, till the high command, they have it in them to beat the Chinese. They have the spirit, they have the Kshatriya spirit, they have the will, they have the energy, they have maybe the Divine Mother with them. But on the bureaucratic side, on the political side, that will is not there. I mean, I don't know about the Prime Minister, what he thinks, but from the External Affairs Minister to the bureaucrat in the MEA, there is still that spirit of we should not, upset everything. We should negotiate with China. We need to, cool down things. We need to come back to the status quo. So on one hand, you have the capacity to beat the Chinese, and on the other hand, you have a break with still that same Nehruvian thing, which I feel is very present in India today, because the whole system, the whole apparatus, is 40, 50 years of Congress, power. And so even the present government is functioning in that power, and it is like shackles that maybe you don't see when you're in Delhi, but you see it from outside. So you have the military, the capacity to beat the Chinese, and you have the break, that is the bureaucracy and the political leadership that still wants to negotiate and to come back to a status quo.
Yeah, but I'll still go back to, if you look at what actions have been taken in the last 2 months, right? Taking the heights at so many different positions, almost 12 different
they're like
positions.
Homeopathic measures, we would like to see the Indian government giving, tit for tat to the Chinese, saying, okay, you're claiming Arunachal Pradesh fine, we would say that Tibet is a disputed territory. I mean, to say that because we're having talks, with Taiwan, economic talks, this is homeopathy. This is a small thing. It's not going to upset the Chinese.
But I mean, I think so. What I'm
contrasting a more forceful government.
No, Francois, only I'm contrasting is if you compare what was happening just about a decade back to what's happening now, there is a change. Sure. It may not be what we like to have, but there is a change. There is a significant change.
Dhirenji, may I at this point say this, that from a decade ago we have changed, but really, I mean, from a Sunil Gavaskar defensive position to Mohammad Azharuddin flick shot, that's all the difference that is. If you really want to have a change vis-a-vis the Chinese change, if we have changed by 1 inch, they have changed by 20 inches. Okay, so we need to keep up, and if we want to compete, or if we want to really take on the dragon, we really cannot be thinking of small baby steps. We need to be confident about what we already have, and of course what we will build in future. We have so far avoided any kind of conflict, even with our Western neighbor, and despite the present government's public posture of being a more aggressive thing, we have taken very cosmetic actions against all our adversaries. So I say that we could have done more with China. Let us say, if just the economic battle, you have a negative import list for defense. You said these things will not be imported from anywhere. You can actually make a negative import list from China. These things cannot be imported from China can be a list which the government has stopped short from doing. Okay, so it's the individual companies which are coming, or the sectors which are coming forward, that we will stop importing from China. It is not a government diktat that has come. The government has only done banning of apps and stuff, which really is not a policy decision, which is more of a paper that, okay, Chinese apps are banned. On what basis? Why should they continue? And tomorrow, if a new app comes in to replace, say, something like PUBG from China, will you allow it back? It's not a policy paper that stops any Chinese app from coming. It's only the existing app that you have.
So Mr. Jai, if I were to if you look at it, there is just last week there was a report that any new investments that involves Chinese investment or even partial share, even 10% share, will have to go through approval. Earlier it was. So there is a change. I do agree that it's not as much as we would like to have it, but there is a significant change. My thoughts on that.
Which is actually sitting on your land. This is a country which is positioning soldiers against your country, and you are still being defensive about how much action you want to take.
I agree that maybe we would like to see more. All I'm saying is that there is significant change, may not be to the extent that we would like to see. I agree. So let's move to the... Go ahead.
Isn't that the whole Nehruvian issue that we are challenging? The whole Nehruvian mind process that needs to go.
Got it.
Yes, and it's not going.
Question is, what is the risk reward payoff? See, that is how you have to look at something.
Yeah.
What is the upside? What is the downside?
Correct.
Right? Now the thing is this. If I'm saying, let's talk about 2-3 actions that I've talked about. Let us say that we are at the Karakoram Pass. Karakoram Pass is 20 kilometers from Dawlat Beg Oldie.
Absolutely, yeah.
You just go and take Karakoram Pass. Doesn't take any effort. It is a very big strategic thing. What you will have then is you would have told the world that, okay, guys, we have done this. So this is all signaling. What will China do? If they come to war against you, they will be smashed. We've already established that. So they will not do anything. They will huff. They will puff. If you go and meet the Dalai Lama and keep talking about Tibet, what can China do? Will they attack us? We want them to attack us, because if they attack us, we will smash them.
Yeah.
So nothing will happen. So nothing will happen if you talk to the Dalai Lama. Nothing will happen if you talk about Taiwan. And nothing will happen if you take Karakoram. But what are we hearing today? I don't know if it is true or not. There was an article in the newspaper. I don't trust this gentleman, Ajay Shukla, at all. But he says that there is some discussion about both parties deciding to disengage, which means that we will leave the Kailash range. I don't know if it is true, but if you leave the Kailash range, that is suicidal. That is suicidal. We should never do that. So, question is that China is very clear on its objective. They have to show you down. If not now, they'll do it in a few years later. All you have to do is take a little stronger action. Nobody is saying that you launch an invasion on Lhasa right now. I mean, that would be insane. As we have said that our advantage is up to roughly about 150, 200 kilometers is where the advantage is. I'm saying don't even do that. Don't even do that. Speak to the Dalai Lama publicly. Tell the world that you killed 80 of theirs in Galwan. Make about it. And go and sit in Karakoram and take 1 or 2 peaks and tell the world that we have taken peaks. Tell the world that we have done this. But we are not doing that. Whatever we have done, we are brushing it under the table.
Dhirenji, may I at this point just remind everyone that at one place that we did take action without any authorization, of course, was Galwan, right? And that is the only place Chinese have gone back.
Yeah.
A message which should have registered with everyone that once you hit them, they go back.
Yeah. Okay.
And remember that was without, as he says, that was without authorization. They ambushed us.
That was by the army on the ground rather than by the.
Not even the army on the ground. It was by the individual troops. Yeah. This was against the commander's orders.
Okay. Let's move to the next question. So let's look at the broader. What is the Chinese objective? We have discussed about it in the last program, but let's revisit. What is the Chinese objective on this? So, Francois, if you would like to go on that, and then we can talk to other panelists on that.
No, I think the Chinese have a tendency for hegemony. There are so many of them, and they thirst for more territory. And they also have a thirst to conquer the world. That they have it must be. I don't know the Chinese well, but it must be in their psyche. They have a thirst for more territory and they have a thirst for more power. So everything they do, not only now but before COVID, whether it's that built that new Silk Road that crosses the Himalayas and goes into Gwadar and the Pakistan, and from there, they can flood Europe with their goods. Everything is about power, and everything is about having more territory. So the Spratly Islands, making of these islands, an important post for controlling the sea passages between the China Sea and the Indian Ocean, striking in Hong Kong. I mean, some people say that the COVID was actually created to stifle the revolt in Hong Kong, or in Ladakh, claiming territory from India. So these are all part of that psyche of hegemony of we are the king. We need to conquer the world. We were once upon a time the greatest civilization, the most intelligent, and we want to go back to that domination of the world. So I think there are 2 obstacles. One is the US, which is a very major obstacle, but they're very far away. The problem of the US is that it's far away, so they can send some kind of aircraft carrier near Taiwan, but for how long can they do that? And of course, if Mr. Trump loses, I don't think Mr. Biden will have the same urge to protect the rest of the world from China. So it's important, we should talk one day about these elections also. Again, not that I'm a big fan of Mr. Trump, but for India and to contain China, there are only 2 countries who can contain China, who have an interest to contain China. One is the US, because it always had, a kind of, US saved the world many times. It saved Europe twice in 1914 and 1944, twice. Everybody forgets about that. That the US saved the democratic world twice, and today again against China there's only the US and India, not out of wanting to control China, but just because it is there. It is it's got borders, and it lost Tibet. Nobody said it again and again that the loss of Tibet was such a major blunder for India, because it was a buffer between China and India. And that is not only gone, but now it's in the hands of the Chinese, so they can swoop down. They swoop down like they did in '62. They have a strategic advantage, which is very important. There's a report from the CIA which says also that the Chinese have used Tibetan caves, that the monks used to meditate in, to store some of the ballistic weapons, ballistic missiles, and many of them are pointed towards India. So the nuclear aspect, though, I think the Chinese are wise enough engage in a nuclear war, but who knows? Who knows? So these are very important factors, and the world needs to wake up to this threat, to this thirst for power and hegemony of the Chinese, which only the US and India at the moment are in the way of. I'm worried about the economy, because we see in India, and it comes from a goodwill, that there's an urge to protect India from imports, from cheap imports, from the Chinese in particular. But the experience, and I've lived in India 50 years, my experience is that subsidies, and import taxes, import duties have not boosted creativity in India. That we know the ambassador, which for decades ruled India because there was no competition. But the truth is, hero cycles, and it is true of of scooters. It is true even with weapons. I made for the Figaro. I went to HAL, in Hindustan Aeronautics Limited, and they have, they've been working 40 years on an airplane, the Tejas, which not even, not even airworthy. So needs to open up. I'm not a capitalist, but I think India needs to open up rather than close down and have these import duties to protect local industries. But we know that it doesn't boost creativity. What boosts creativity is that because India has not produced any computer of value, any AC of value, any fridge of value in 50 years of, import duties. So India needs to open up fast, and because it's a war with the Chinese also.
True. So coming to Mr. Jha, what is your view on why is China doing this? What are the long-term objectives of these actions?
So being a military guy, I always try to bracket things. And in my view, there are three particularly important aspects that we need to look at. One is obviously the historical civilizational aspect, China's view of Middle Kingdom and dominating the world, as Frankwaji was saying. Then secondly is the ideological aspect, which is communism. And communism itself drives a lot of struggle, which is to, spread communism itself. It has a very aggressive view of how the world should, be, and communists try to spread across the world. They'll go and recruit, and they will turn the world. So that communism and communistic ideology itself is a major driver of what China keeps doing, and they do it everywhere. They do it all along the borders. They've not got a single settled border. And third is political, which is driven by individuals like Xi at this moment, or Xi Jinping, and she is insecure, a person who's as much as a megalomaniac as probably Hitler, because he wants power forever. He wants to be the ruler of China forever till he dies. And he's consolidated power like that to himself, and he wants to establish himself as the greatest Chinese ruler since whoever. And Xi is he's in this whole path of expansionism across frontiers, whether it is the 9-dash line becoming the 11-dash line, his claim and getting more aggressive towards Taiwan, his claims over Hong Kong and the way they're changing laws over there, the way they're treating the Uyghurs in Xinjiang, and of course, their action both in Bhutan versus Bhutan, Nepal, and India. So you see a wide frontier action by Xi in trying to expand the Chinese frontiers all across. It's driven by the two things. He justifies using the Chinese civilization. He justifies using the communistic ideology. But more than that, he's trying to secure his own power in China. And India is just one of those countries suffering at this point of time. This kind of belligerence that China is showing. We're not the only one. Of course, we are the strongest who stood up against it. We are the strongest country in all the countries that have been affected. And we have decided to stand up. 2017 Doklam was one example. End results were maybe 50-50, but we did stand up there, and now the present crisis. But our way of standing up is again a very defensive, and it's so much similar to what happened against Hitler in World War II. Countries kept delaying the ultimate action, and Hitler got a pass against, say, Czechoslovakia and Austria, and even to a large extent against Poland. And it's only after Poland was attacked that the rest of the world, got serious about taking on Hitler.
Got it.
So we are letting that happen, and we are not being aggressive with China. We are letting Xi become more and more dominant in the world space. He might go the route Hitler has gone, and it looks like he will. So at some point, you expect an attack, military attack, on one of these countries. Which day will that happen? I don't know, but it looks like it's going there.
Got it. So we have just few minutes left, so let's talk about, in case there is, and it is again, that's how it is getting played out. If there is a two-front war, what do we see? How will that play out? And what could India do to protect itself? So Akshay, you want to go on that first?
I suggest we let Jha go first, because he said he has a shortage of time. So let him speak first.
Yeah.
So in a two-front war, if it happens for us, we'll have to play defensive with China while we go on offensive with Pakistan. We really do not have the wherewithal to be offensive on both the fronts together. And I think given our priorities as of now, we will probably go offensive with Pakistan and hold China where we can hold up. And present LAC, where the defenses we've developed, is where I think will the holding battle happen with China. Versus Pakistan, we'll need to have very clear objectives as to what we want to achieve from that two-front war, if and when it happens. I have serious doubt that a two-front war will happen. But if it happens, we will probably need to define an objective. If our objective is Gilgit-Baltistan, yeah, sure, go ahead, take it. It won't be easy. Remember that one hill range of Kargil took us 3 to 4 months. All right, Gilgit-Baltistan is repeated multiple ranges like Kargil. So it will be because a lot of your troops will be tied with China. You won't have all your facilities available to fight Pakistan. So it will take a longer, and it will be a much more attritional battle. At some point in this battle, I expect that the world will start pushing us to get to a ceasefire and stop fighting. So it will take a very strong political leadership to take the military objective or political objective pre-decided. Otherwise,
in that scenario, maybe swift action, because before the world wakes up, if you're taken swift action, it puts you into strategic position then to really negotiate.
Aggressive action to take and seize territory and opportunities that present, rather than wait like what we are doing presently. This kind of decision making will have to be shunned.
Yeah, and can I just tell you exactly how that can be done? See, very quickly, if you look at the disposition of forces, India has 2 commands against China. Northern Command, which handles both Pakistan and China. Within Northern Command, you've got 14 Corps, which is completely against China. In fact, 14 Corps also handles. So 14 Corps has got 2 divisions, 8 Div and 3 Div. 3 Div is against China, 8 Div is against Pakistan and Kargil. But mota, if we look at the area, we've got from memory, I think we've got 9+. So we've got about 12 divisions against China. Okay, about 9 or 10 in Eastern Command in Arunachal Pradesh, and right now 2 in Eastern Ladakh. That is enough against China. Because remember, we are not going into the heart of Lhasa or anything of that sort. Against Pakistan, we've got 22 divisions solely for Pakistan. Pakistan's entire army is just about 21 divisions or so. Okay. So in terms of the correlation of forces, if a two-front war happens, we can hold both. It's not a problem. Okay. But the question is, what is the objective of war fighting? So some areas you will go offensive, some areas you will hold. Now you can take 2 things. Either you can take a sky chain or you can take Gilgit-Baltistan. You can't take both at the same time.
Yeah.
So I think what we will do is, or what we should do is, we will hold China where we are. There are enough forces to hold China where we are and fight a couple of offensive actions, maybe through Spanger and all, or maybe through Demchok. And you direct your effort against Pakistan. And the main thing that you have to do there is, you have to realize that Pakistan is a long country. They've got a width of barely about 300 kilometers. They're basically a very long country. And they're split in half by the Indus River.
Yeah.
Okay? Now, on the north part of the Indus, there are these 5 Punjab rivers that basically go like this. They tilt northeast. Out of the 21 odd divisions of the Pakistani army, 14 divisions are in Punjab, in Pakistani Punjab.
True.
So what should we do? We should keep those divisions there. How do you keep them there? You smash all the bridges on the Indus so that you don't prevent north-south movement and east-west movement, and you smash all the bridges on these 5 rivers So you keep these 13 divisions that Pakistan has, 14 divisions Pakistan has in Punjab. You keep them in Punjab. And what you do is, of those 22 divisions that you have, the vast majority of your mechanized forces, which are in basically your Southern Command, Southwestern Command, and Western Command, your 3 strike corps, strike 1, strike 2, strike 3, you use that force like a juggernaut to hit their center of gravity, which is basically the Bhavalpur area.
So there are a couple of weaknesses that Pakistan also has. There are a lot of weaknesses right now Pakistan has.
So the war is fought by concentrating the right amount of forces at the right place, delivering it at the right place. If they've got 20, we've got 20, it's not at each, one will come against one. What you do is you hold 14 there, keep 3, 4, they've got to keep 3, 4 for Iran also. 4, 5 are left here, you hit these 4, 5 at 10 and you hit them fast.
Yeah, apart from that, I think, with China, we cannot use our Navy as much. So we can concentrate Navy against Pakistan and hit from other force
Correct.
side.
So, absolutely. And you hit them on Karachi and all of that. So that can be done. I just have one point to make very quickly. I believe that you can take Gilgit-Baltistan quickly because it is something called concept of operations. Your concept of operations should be, there are 2 main roads going into Gilgit-Baltistan. You take the roads and you take the main urban centers. You don't clear every hill. You take places like Skardu,
Gilgit, Chitral, Minimar,
absolutely. Where their 5 brigades are.
That would be then POK. That was the Azad Kashmir, the presently designated Azad Kashmir.
So the main point is this: the concept of operations is you take their nodes. You don't go into clearing every hilltop. You ensure that they don't get their food and water from these nodes. You starve them in the mountains.
Got it.
Don't go and waste your energy taking every hilltop. No. You take these nodes, cut off all supply to the hilltops, cut off Gilgit-Baltistan from the rest of Pakistan. We've looked at it. There are 3, 4 bridges that you need to take. I think one of Jahan, where was that bridge?
That dam.
No, not the dam. The bridge. Chilas. There's a bridge at Chilas, which is a main bridge. You smash that one bridge and you keep smashing it. And there is one in the north as well. A couple of bridges there. You cut off that entire area, and you basically let the Pakistani army starve in the hillsides.
Essentially, if we can narrow down even further, then basically cut down the supply chain routes, the CPEC road, the Karakoram highway, you've got the Islamabad, Rawalpindi, Karachi link, which you have to cut down. If once you cut those down, you have basically a Pakistani army stuck in a very small state of Pakistani Punjab, in that Chamb Shakargarh bulge, and that is where they will be held, while we have much more freedom, militarily speaking, to do it. And on the naval front, I was talking to a naval officer recently, and he educated me, because I had made the same mistake as you made, that we will be free, Navy-wise, we will be much better off with Pakistan. He said, absolutely incorrect, because versus Pakistan, we definitely have a lot of superiority, but we have a great superiority with Navy versus China also, because the Chinese Navy is straddled by its own geographical problems.
Correct.
To this Indian Ocean, there are just 2 nodes or 3 nodes actually, but the 3rd node comes right next to Australia, so that is not going to be useful for them. The 2 nodes that they can use is the Sunda Strait and the Malacca Strait, and both at these places we can choke. We have enough resources to do it. Malacca Strait is basically Andaman Sea, and you can do it just from the airbase that we have over there. You don't even need the Navy, but Sunda Strait, at the Java Sea area, you can you use your destroyers and block that area.
Yeah. That's what my point was, that there is a possibility of us using our Navy, which may not be as much occupied against China, to take on. I think Francois wanted to say something, and we are coming to the close of the program, so we might have a closing comment from each of you after Francois finishes.
Yeah. Again, I am no military strategist, and I think what Akshay said is absolutely possible, that the Indian Army has the capacity and the will, but who's going to give the order? Is it the army chief, or is it the political leadership? And at the moment, as you know, I'm doing that Museum of Indian History And I have studied people like Maharana Pratap, who held off Akbar, a much superior army, or Shivaji Maharaj, who 300 men beat the most powerful army in the world, or even, wonderful heroines like, Aliabai Holkar, who fought, or Tarabai. At the moment, I'm doing Tarabai, and Rani Chennamma, But they were, they had the leadership. There was nobody above them to tell them, they could use their wit, their odyssey, their courage, their heroism. So, but who's the Shivaji Maharaj today? I'm a great admirer of Mr. Modi, but I don't see him, as a Shivaji Maharaj in case of a war. Who knows? Who knows? He may come out to be that new Shivaji Maharaj, but at the moment we don't see a Shivaji Maharaj because we need one to fight the Chinese. Because Indian army, is stifled a bit. It's got a leadership above it that could stifle its creativity, and leadership. That's what I say.
I think I would just add to that, saying that the political leadership has to also put some josh into the top generals. See, if you see the Bangladesh campaign, the reason why Bangladesh exists today is because of a gentleman called Lieutenant General Sagat Singh. He disobeyed orders, and with his 4 corps, he smashed through. Unfortunately, I don't see too many Sagat Singhs around.
Okay.
So this concept of operations that I told you in Gilgit-Baltistan, it can absolutely be done. You basically need a lightning fast war, which is basically what General Sagat Singh did in this thing. But somebody has to tell the current Indian Army generals that, guys, do this. It can be done. I'm right with you. And this is the point that Francois made very eloquently, that Shivaji Maharaj was both a political leader as well as general himself. So who's going to do this? I don't know. I don't have an answer to that.
The divine grace.
Yeah. So closing comments from you, Mr. Jha.
Absolutely agree with both Francois and Akshayji that we need our Sagat Singhs, our Shivajis. We need them at these moments, because otherwise we'll let our opportunities squander away. This was an opportunity in April, May time. I was just hoping that next day we'll get the news that we have taken back, and not seeing it happen was such a sad moment. But going forward, I definitely do not worry that the Chinese will be able to push us any further back. We are strong enough to hold them where they are. They caught us napping, but they won't do it again. And hopefully we'll have a better 2021 and with leadership much more decisive than what they are now.
Let's hope for that. And thank you so much and for joining this program. And really, it was, I learned a lot of new things from this. Thank you so much.
And I just want to thank Francois ji for, reminding us again of people like Shivaji, Rana Pratap, Rani Chennamma, so many, Lachit Bhopkaran. There's so many. And I see this beautiful background on Francois' page, an entirely new history of India. So, I would encourage everybody to read this, because the history that we've been taught is that we've always lost. Actually, that's not true. We've won many, many battles with small forces. Where we lost was in consolidation.
Yes.
Yeah.
We didn't consolidate our gains. So I think it is very important to read things like this. Please do read I've not read it, but I shall certainly order it today. An entirely new history of India. And please, gift it to all your friends. And this information must get out.
Thank you.
Yeah. And Francois ji is doing wonderful job of reminding us of how brave and how powerful our history is.
And you must also visit Francois' museum in Pune.
I'm indebted to the greatness of India more than anything.
The Shivaji Maharaj Museum of Indian History. Everybody must go and see it. I've had the privilege and the honor of being there. And it is a beautiful place. It is outside the outskirts of Pune, in a beautiful area. There's a little pond there as well. Lovely area. Francois put in lots of blood and sweat there. And what you have on the walls there is you've got actual farmans by people like Aurangzeb and others saying that killed so many Hindus, killed so many Brahmins. Where is the proof that you've done it? In a very bureaucratic way. So everybody must go and visit that museum.
Absolutely agree. Absolutely agree. And we are privileged to have Francois ji join our programs regularly.
Yeah.
Thank you so much. Thank you, Mr. Jha. Thank you, Akshay ji. Thank you, Francois ji. Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you.